The MPA Capstone Project, the Literature Review. The primary memorandum outline has 7 sections: Introduction, Problem Assessment, Literature Review, Stakeholder Assessment, Options Specification, Options Assessment, and Recommendation. This media lecture covers the Literature Review. The Capstone Project is developed in steps. The Literature Review is due during week 4. The Literature Review is intended to address 3 basic questions. What is known about the local problem? What is the state of scholarly knowledge? And what are the best practices in other jurisdictions? A literature review in a policy analysis is different from literature reviews that you may have completed for other courses or projects. The purpose is to brief your client. Your client has limited time and attention, and your capstone project has limited space. Therefore, the literature review for your policy analysis is different. And let's compare the difference between a literature review you might have developed for a term paper and a literature review you would develop for a policy analysis. There are 4 basic differences. The first involves length. In a term paper for a class, there was probably no limit on the length of the literature review that you could submit. However, in a policy analysis, in the real world, the length of your literature review is going to be limited by your client's attention span. And furthermore, in our assignment for the capstone project, there is also the 12-page limitation on the entire memorandum. The second difference is in scope. Typically, a term paper literature review is going to cover scholarly articles and professional studies. In a policy analysis, however, scholarly articles and professional studies are important and in many instances essential. But we also want to include local information about your jurisdiction and your particular case, as well as information about best practices in other jurisdictions. A third area of difference is depth. In a term paper for a course, you are typically expected to go back to the original source for every document that you include in your literature review. You need to have examined the primary sources that you are referencing. In a policy analysis, you are certainly, it can be a very good practice to go back and examine each source that's referenced. But in the narrative of the literature review, you need to cite the most important sources. And you should also consider quoting and citing other literature reviews where someone else has summarized an area of knowledge about the policy that you're covering. This enables you to cover a lot of area about your topic in a relatively small number of pages. The last difference involves the structure of a literature review. In a term paper, the literature review may have a conceptual, even theoretical, and very comprehensive focus. The idea is to summarize the state of knowledge about a topic. In a policy analysis, our goal is to focus on answering the client's question. Now, we want to provide a comprehensive answer to the question, but our focus is not to answer all of the possible questions about a policy or a topic, but rather to examine the issue from the point of view of the client and provide the client with the key information that the client should have about the state of knowledge in the field. Your primary memorandum will have citations in most sections. While you're developing the literature review, it is efficient and wise to take advantage of bibliography and citation management tools. For example, Microsoft Word has a powerful citation and source management tool. It simplifies completing the citations of sources. It assures that you are following the requirements of the citation format that you select, and it automatically generates a bibliography. Do you lack access to Microsoft Word? Remember that Microsoft Word is available in all of the college computer centers, so you can come to campus and access Microsoft Word if you're a campus-based student. Microsoft Word is also available to you as a CUNY student at a very deep discount. What you do is to log into the CUNY portal at www.cuny.edu and then select the CUNY Mall. You select the CUNY Mall by logging in the same manner as you do when you access Blackboard. And there you'll see that there is a software center in the CUNY Mall that offers free and discounted software for students. Take advantage of this opportunity. Now let's return to the Microsoft Word bibliography and citation management system. When you're ready to insert a citation, under the References tab, select Insert Citation and add New Source. Select the type of source and fill in the information. In this case, a book has been selected, and the bibliographical information about the book is being entered in the database. You will see that the tab for the type of source includes a wide variety of other kinds of documents, including websites, journal articles, newspaper articles, interviews, and so all of the possible kinds of sources that you might wish to cite are covered. When you have identified the information about the source that you wish to cite, you add the page number or numbers that you're specifically citing and insert it in your document. Based upon the particular type of citation format you've requested, it will be inserted automatically. Be sure for your capstone project to select the APA citation format. Then all of your citations are automatically completed for you throughout your paper. Of course, you may be wondering how this system manages the bibliography that appears at the end of your paper. When your project is complete, you go to the end of your paper and you insert your bibliography at the end of your memo. You do this by putting your cursor at the end of your primary memorandum and then selecting the Insert Bibliography option, and the bibliography is inserted automatically. Remember that if you then rework your document and add new citations, you then should go back and replace the bibliography that you have with an updated one by reinserting the bibliography. The bibliography that's in your document is not automatically updated each time you change the citations in your document. So remember, it's important to cite your sources, Be sure that your quoted material is in quotations. Your bibliography goes at the end of your primary memorandum. It is included in the 12-page limit, but it does not need its own page. And if you add another reference when you rework your document, be sure to reinsert your bibliography. The following is a warning about citing your own work in your capstone project. You are allowed to use material from term projects you have completed for prior MPA courses. Be sure that the material that you are quoting from a prior term project, such as a term paper that you completed in another class, was properly cited at the time. If you are currently in a class and you want to use if you want to write a term paper for a second class and for your capstone project on the same topic, be sure to get permission of the professor in the other class that you are currently taking. Here's what you need to remember. Parts of your capstone project that you submit to Turnitin in the 9th week might show up in the Turnitin report for your term project in the other class in the 14th or 15th week. And if the other professor did not understand this and give you permission in advance, this may be considered plagiarism by the other professor. It is acceptable in the capstone seminar, but that doesn't mean that it's acceptable to the other professor unless you get permission. Now, let's return to the primary focus of this media lecture. What should you cover in your literature review? Well, as explained at the beginning of the media lecture, there are 3 basic questions you need to answer. The first is, what is known about the local problem? This might include reports, agency studies, independent studies, news articles. The second question is, what is the state of scholarly knowledge? For example, are there peer-reviewed journal articles? Are there scholarly books? Or are there professional studies about your topic that can inform the decisions that need to be made? The third question is, what are the best practices in other jurisdictions? What approaches to the problem have been attempted or are in place in other jurisdictions that might serve as models for your jurisdiction? The first of the 3 basic problems involves what is known about the local problem. You'll want to start by asking yourself, what is known about the action-forcing event? You introduce the action-forcing event in the introduction to your primary memorandum. And in the introduction, you discussed what happened and why it's of concern to your client. But is there more local information about what happened that can more completely explain what the action-forcing event involved? For example, are there reports, agency studies, independent studies, news articles? What do we know based upon local information about why the action-forcing event took place, and perhaps what the underlying problem is? Perhaps the action-forcing event is a symptom of a more serious underlying policy problem. The second basic question involves the state of scholarly knowledge. Here, you will want to review peer-reviewed journal articles and scholarly books and professional studies. As a technique to uncover resources to consider, be sure to look at literature reviews and bibliographies from other policy studies on your topic. They may point you to scholarly articles and perhaps other policy studies that you should be aware of and take into consideration in your review. Similarly, scholarly articles usually have extensive literature reviews, and scholarly articles may also point you to professional studies and reports that you should take into consideration in your literature review. Finally, you may find that there is an author or an organization that has published material and has demonstrated credible expertise on the topic. You may want to explore what other publications the organization has produced or what other publications the author is responsible for, as these may also be valuable in your own literature review. The third question involves best practices in other jurisdictions. What strategies have been attempted in other jurisdictions to try to resolve or mitigate the problem? Are there alternative approaches that are in place in other jurisdictions that are working better than the approach that you've encountered in the jurisdiction that's the focus of your policy analysis? This part of the literature review might help you to identify the policy options that you'll be considering in your project. For example, the policy options might be the status quo, that is to say, sticking with the practice and policy that exists in the jurisdiction that you're studying now, and then 3 different approaches that you've discovered in 3 different jurisdictions. Remember that each of the policy options that you identify for your project ought to be reviewed in your literature review, so that later on when you identify your alternative options, you will have examined them in the literature review to some extent. You are probably wondering how you can accomplish this literature review in 3 to 4 pages. It may seem that the literature review that the MPA faculty is expecting is more extensive and more complex than one that you might have completed in a conventional term paper. Well, the key is first of all to write concisely. Say exactly what it is that needs to be said and say it simply and directly. A second approach is to rely on other literature reviews so that your literature review doesn't have to establish everything based on the primary sources. You can, for example, refer to 2 other literature reviews and summarize the basic results of those literature reviews on the topic and highlight the major points. A third approach is to group common studies and discuss them together. So there might be 5 or 6 studies that have examined your topic, and you might be able to discuss what they're finding in a general statement about all of them, rather than attempting to address each one individually. Remember that it's not appropriate to just list studies and comment on each one. This provides information to your client, but it doesn't summarize what the literature review is saying. It simply gives the client fragments of information, and you're expecting the client to try to figure out what this list of documents means. It's important for you to summarize for your client what the literature means. Finally, you accomplish this in 3 to 4 pages by targeting your literature review to your client's question and the topic that's in front of you. Typically, a policy topic can go in a whole variety of directions, but if you focus precisely on the questions that your client is concerned about, you may be able to accomplish a comprehensive review in fewer pages. Your literature review covers three basic questions. What is known about the local problem? What is the state of scholarly knowledge? And what are the best practices in other jurisdictions? Use the citation management system in Microsoft Word, or that may be built into some other word processing system to manage your citations and your bibliography. Carefully cite the works you rely on and take no more than 3 to 4 pages for your literature review. Thank you.